Okay.
สวัสดีครับต้อนรับเข้าสู่สุทธิชัยไลฟ์เช้าวันอาทิตย์นี้นะครับขณะที่ผมกำลังติดตามสถานการณ์ของเฮอริเคนเออร์มาก็มีนัดหมายกับ Professor เฟิงต้าสวนครับซึ่งเป็นอาจารย์ศาสตราจารย์ความจริงทางด้านวิทยาศาสตร์ครับแต่ว่าช่วงหลังมาสนใจเรื่องราวของ One Belt One Road และก็ที่น่าสนใจคือศาสตราจารย์เฟิงก็วิเคราะห์ถึง One Belt One Road กับประเทศไทยกับอาเซียนและจีนด้วยน่าสนใจแง่มุมมองจากอาจารย์ที่เกิดที่อเมริกามาโตทำงานที่ไต้หวันสอนหนังสือตอนนี้สอนทั้งที่อเมริกาทั้งที่มาเก๊ามหาวิทยาลัยมาเก๊าด้วยและไต้หวันขณะเดียวกันล่าสุดก็ได้รับเชิญเป็นที่ปรึกษาของ Think Tank ของจีนว่าด้วยเรื่อง One Belt One Road อยากจะฟังเหมือนกันครับว่าในฐานะเป็นศาสตราจารย์ที่รู้ภาษาจีนติดต่อกับจีนวิเคราะห์เรื่อง One Belt One Road คิดยังไง Good morning Professor Feng
Good morning suthichai
Good morning I'm so happy to get you on my Facebook live chat this morning
It's my great honor. By the way, I hope it's not impolite to just call you suthichai.
Sure, I'm happy because when you call me suthichai, it means that we are personal friends.
And you can call me Hsuan.
Hsuan,
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I'll call you Hsuan. I'll call you Professor Feng also. But we met at the AIT about 2 weeks, a little bit more than 2 weeks ago, and you were talking about One Belt, One Road, and how it would change the world, including ASEAN, including Thailand. And also, you have written an article published 2 days ago in The Nation about why and how Thailand could become the hub of One Belt, One Road for this region. Can you tell me why you are so optimistic about Thailand and One Belt, One Road?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak to a large number of people regarding how Thailand could be one of the pivotal points in the world regarding One Belt, One Road, and for sure regarding Southeast Asian nations.
Yes.
As I said in my article, and I will just summarize it very quickly here.
Yeah.
And that is, first of all, Thailand is quite an unusual country. It has never been colonized, and it has never been brutalized in some sense.
Yes.
And therefore, a country, however they did it, must imply that they have certain understanding of global maneuverability. As a small country, I know you are 80 million people, but compared to 1.4 billion and 1.2 billion, it is still relatively small.
Yes. We're just a little city in China. Smaller than many of the provinces in China too.
That's right. You know, actually, it's very interesting. They are now trying to create the greater Guangzhou area into a mega city of 100 million.
Oh my God, 100 million.
Anyway, and the fact that you have been able to maneuver between major powers and find ways to survive as well as to thrive tells people that it is very important in the world today that people with such skill sets are absolutely necessary in order to become very, very survival and very, very healthy in its development. So that's one thing. Secondly, I also said that as an educator, I have kept a close eye on the Thai higher education development. And your universities are certainly well known in many parts of the world. And I've stated that in my article. And thirdly, I think that one of the few things that people don't seem to realize is that Thailand's manufacturing ability is probably the best in Southeast Asia. And in fact, people refer to Thailand as the ASEAN Germany because Germany is so well known for manufacturing. In fact, I think you told me that 3 years ago or 4 years ago, when you had a terrible flood in Bangkok.
Yes.
And of course, many of the manufacturing companies were flooded as well.
Yes.
And when that happened, many parts of the world's large manufacturing centers were short on parts.
Right.
And that's because most of the parts came from Thailand.
That's right. And even Thai people were surprised that we were producing so many important parts for the rest of the world.
That's right. And it is not something that any other Southeast Asian nation at the moment is comparable to. Now, I will tell you something that, we spoke about 3 days ago.
Yes.
Since then, I learned something even more important. My collaborator in my article in Nation, Liang Haiming, a few days ago attended a conference in China's Guangxi province on intelligent cities. There he met Mr. Korn Dabaransi.
Yes.
And I think people refer to him as Kun Korn.
Kun Korn, right. He's well known. He's well known in Thailand. He's a well-known politician, and also former energy minister of many posts. Okay.
Yes. He heard my colleagues talk on intelligent city. And one of the really amazing thing about Thailand is that when my colleague Liang Haiming gave some lectures in Thailand a year ago, he discovered that many of his audience actually had the WeChat, but the Thai version of the WeChat.
Wow, there is a Thai version of the WeChat?
That's right. And what that means is that there's no doubt that Thailand, therefore, is ready to become Southeast Asia's omnipresent economy. Now, what is omnipresent economy? And in fact, we just wrote an article in one of Chinese newspaper. The omnipresent economy is very simple. It is the combination of mobile internet and smart devices with security.
It means
you put
anywhere.
These three together.
It means anywhere, anytime. Anywhere,
anytime. And so, if you look at some of the major cities, there are about 200 Chinese cities at the moment practicing omnipresent economy. And there is no doubt that Thailand, in the very near future, within months, I could say, could very well become that. In fact, last night, Jaime and I had some long discussion, and I have just written a preliminary version of the paper about Thailand becoming the prototype of Southeast Asia. So I might even send it to you again.
Please do. I'm so impressed that you are so prolific in writing. You keep writing. Every time you have a new idea, you put it on paper and you start writing. Very, very few people could do that.
But what I do is I make sure I talk to experts in the area. One of the things that we all recognize, and maybe not you, but for me for sure, is I don't know everything.
No one knows everything. Nobody knows everything.
And therefore, I talk very quickly on any subject about this. Now, I tell you why I'm so interested in smart, intelligent cities. In 1998, I was the vice president of an American company called SAIC, Science Applications International Corporation. SAIC is a huge company. It's Fortune 500. And it has about 60,000 workers, of which about 25,000 are PhDs.
Wow.
Now, what does this company do? Well, this company basically serves as the intelligent component of the U.S. military. For example, many of the military technologies that need to be developed are developed by this this company. One of the things we were thinking at that time was developing the electronic passport for cars driving on superhighways.
Electronic passport for cars.
Yes, well, the pass that you need to drive on superhighways.
The electronic pass.
Now, electronic pass.
Yes.
And at that time, we had tremendous difficulty because if you just have an electronic pass, the data needs to go somewhere.
Right.
At that time, there was no sufficient intelligent archiving for large-scale data. Secondly, there is no interoperability for various governmental divisions.
Right.
For example, if you want to check whether a person is safe or not, you not only have to go through the Department of Transportation, you have to go through the police department and so on.
Right.
Those departments simply don't talk to each other.
No, right.
And that is called the interoperability. And interoperability now is a no-brainer. And because of the huge development of this internet, mobile internet and smart devices, and once the interoperability is there, you change the economy.
Right.
And so I see very clearly Thailand, having already penetrated into the WeChat technologies, can be the next and very fast center for this technology.
Yes, so you see a great potential for Thailand to be a smart, intelligent nation.
That's right. It's not only intelligent cities, but intelligent country.
Intelligent. First, we need intelligent people before we can become an intelligent nation. Right?
Hopefully that comes with it.
No, you cannot have an intelligent.
Well, that's where your universities come in.
Yes.
That's where your universities come in, your research centers come in. You know, I think that Thailand is really right to have major research centers in trying to understand the Chinese culture, the Chinese ways and means, and Chinese history, but also in understanding India's equal amount of penetrating into India, as well as other Southeast Asian nations. And then in that sense, Thailand will simply lift itself out of the noise level.
Give me 5 minutes to translate into Thai so my Thai audience could understand it too. Of course, a lot of my audience understand English perfectly, but let me give a summary in Thai as well. ท่านศาสตราจารย์เฟิงเนี่ยศึกษาเรื่องของ One Belt One Road ละเอียดมากแล้วก็มองประเทศไทยเพราะว่ามาเลคเชอร์ที่ AIT ประเทศไทยเมื่อเร็วๆนี้ก็เลยเริ่มศึกษาไทยอย่างละเอียดแล้วก็ได้พูดคุยกับคนมากมายหลายคนพอมาเจอเข้าเนี่ย Professor เฟิงก็เรียนรู้เลยครับว่าประเทศไทยมีศักยภาพสูงมากบอกเลยครับว่าเป็นฮับได้เป็นศูนย์กลางของภูมิภาคนี้ได้โดยเฉพาะด้าน One Belt One Road แล้วก็2ก็คือเรื่องของเทคโนโลยี Professor เฟิงบอกว่าใน WeChat ของจีนเนี่ยมีภาษาไทยซึ่งไม่ใช่มีหลายประเทศนะครับที่มีภาษาตัวเองอยู่ใน WeChat ของจีนซึ่งไปถึงคนเป็นพันล้านคนเลยนะครับ WeChat นี่เป็นแอปมือถือที่แข่งกันกับ Alipay อาลีบาบาของแจ็คหม่าแล้วถ้าหากคนไทยสามารถเข้าไปใช้เทคโนโลยีใหม่ใน WeChat ได้และพัฒนาจากการเป็นศูนย์กลางของการผลิต Professor เฟิงบอกว่าไทยเราเนี่ยเป็นศูนย์กลางของการผลิตคล้ายๆกับเป็นเยอรมันของยุโรปเลยคนไทยเราอาจจะไม่ค่อยได้มองศึกษาหรือว่าชื่นชมตัวเองเท่าไหร่แต่ว่าคนต่างชาติที่เขาศึกษาปั๊บเนี่ยเขามองออกว่าเราเป็นฐานผลิตที่สำคัญผมก็เคยเล่าให้ Professor เฟิงฟังว่าคนไทยจำนวนไม่น้อยแปลกใจมากตอนที่น้ำท่วมใหญ่เนี่ยที่อยู่ดีๆทั้งโลกก็หยุดไปด้วยเพราะว่าเราเนี่ยผลิตพาร์ทต่างๆอะไหล่ต่างๆชิ้นส่วนต่างๆไม่ว่าจะเป็นรถยนต์ไม่ว่าจะเป็นอิเล็กทรอนิกส์หรือว่าเป็นอุปกรณ์ใดๆก็ตามเนี่ยจากเมืองไทยนี่เยอะเลยนะครับไม่ต้องพูดถึงรถยนต์รถกระบะต่างๆที่บริษัทยักษ์ญี่ปุ่น มาผลิตที่เนี่ยส่งออกผลิตที่นี่มากกว่าที่ญี่ปุ่นอีกนะครับแล้วก็แน่นอนเราก็เป็นฐานผลิตที่มีทั้งคุณภาพของคนแล้วมีอุปกรณ์มีโครงเครือข่ายต่างๆนานาที่สำคัญยิ่งฉะนั้น Professor เฟิงบอกว่าเมืองไทยนี่มีศักยภาพมากผมก็มาแอบคิดว่าคนไทยเองเนี่ยมองไทยเราในแง่บวกน้อยกว่าคนต่างประเทศจริงๆนะเขามองว่าหนึ่งเราไม่เคยเป็นเมืองขึ้นใครฉะนั้นก็มีความเป็นตัวของตัวเองมีความรู้สึกรักเกียรติรักศักดิ์ศรีความเป็นของตัวเองสองก็คือระบบการศึกษาเราก็ไม่ได้แพ้ใครยกเว้นเสียแต่ว่าเราเนี่ยจะไม่สามารถที่จะบูรณาการให้มันได้ดีเท่านั้นแล้วสามก็คือเป็นฐานการผลิตที่สำคัญแล้วสี่ตอนนี้เนี่ยถ้าเราศึกษาจีนให้ลึกซึ้งเข้าใจสิ่งที่จีนกำลังทำในเรื่อง One Belt One Road การขยายอิทธิพลของจีนเนี่ยไทยเราก็น่าที่จะสามารถเชื่อมต่อจีนเชื่อมกับญี่ปุ่นเชื่อมกับอเมริกาได้เป็นประเทศที่มีศักยภาพมากจริงๆก็บอกแถบนี้เลยครับไทยเนี่ยน่าจะต้องเข้าใจว่าตัวเองมีบทบาทสำคัญมากน้อยแค่ไหนอย่างไรโอเค Professor Feng One Belt One Road China and Thailand how should we handle China which is getting more and more influential getting more and more demanding and getting more wealthy how does Thailand a small country and the rest of ASEAN our friends in ASEAN cope with the growing influence of China?
Well, thank you very much for this absolutely critical question. I think that if we look at history, especially in the last several hundred years,
yes,
there was no doubt that ever since Industrial Revolution, the Western nations became powerful.
Right.
And as soon as they became powerful, they became powerful in two aspects, militarily and economically.
Yes.
And when they put those two together, they tend to go to the entire world for colonization and in some sense brutalization.
Yeah.
And brutalization sometimes in the mind, as in the British case, or brutalization in the bodies and in some other cases. And so the world simply came to believe that whenever a country becomes powerful, they would become militarily strong as well as economically strong, and that they want to take care of the weaker countries. They want to take over the weaker countries.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at history of China, I think that there was no doubt that throughout the millenniums,
yes,
many countries do pay tremendous respect to the central government, the king, so to speak, the emperor, so to speak. But as far as I know, for example, China never colonized Korea, never colonized Japan. And when Zheng He went all over the world with 30,000 ships, with 30,000 soldiers on 300 naval ships, they also never colonized. It could be that because China was so strong and self-sufficient, China never thought of colonizing. Now, I think that the 21st century has come around, and I think nations such as Thailand need to tell the world that small countries like Thailand, although not that small, but small countries like Thailand need to inform the world, the powerful countries, that they need to be respected, and they need graceful respect. And in fact, Thailand has done precisely that. And Thailand, the way Thai has tried to deal with the Chinese, I think, is a case study for how other countries can deal with China. And open up this discussion openly through your media, for example, through other medias, through universities discussions, through population discussions, through entrepreneurs discussions. Tell them that when China utilizing the One Belt, One Road, it needs to be done on a equal level field.
Equal partners.
Also,
equal partners.
Sorry, equal partner, absolutely.
Yeah.
And also, I think Thailand can be the best example because Thailand entrepreneurs can see China as a client. And not as someone coming in from outside.
Yeah.
For example, as you know, the durian prices in Thailand must have gone through the roof in the last 2 years.
That's true, very true.
And you know very well that's because 300 million Chinese love durian nowadays.
That's true, yeah.
Now, of course, you have a competitor. It's called Malaysia.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not going to be here to tell you whether Malaysian durian is better or Thai durian is better. But nevertheless, all the durians are as good as any other, but they're all loved by China. Really? So the point is, you have 300 or 400 million Chinese now moving into the middle class. That's called a market. Thailand needs to look at what is good in Thailand, such as durian and now your manufacturing, and then penetrate into the Chinese business. The One Belt, One Road, I think, received something of a bad publicity in that people only think of One Belt, One Road as China investing in outside countries. In fact, it is precisely not that.
That's right.
It is a One Belt, One Road should be a two-way street.
Right.
China is welcoming Thailand, for example, to participate in the Chinese market, to invest in the Chinese market and do business and become wealthy through the Chinese market.
Yeah, this is
so
exactly...
I think that this is how the 21st century economy needs to work at. Now, again, like I said, from our previous discussion, Thailand, because of your omnipresence economy or soon to be omnipresence economy, you can then very easily move into China's omnipresence economy, set up the interoperability, and move in that direction.
We need China, though, to show its sincerity and enthusiasm in promoting products from outside of China to come into the Chinese market, because the One Belt, One Road project has been seen in some of the countries in this area as a one-way thing, meaning that China will export its products, will export its culture, will export its even ideology to the outside world rather than the other way around. This is something that I think the small countries have doubts about how China is going to do it to make it an equal partnership. Do you think China realizes that, Professor?
I absolutely agree with you. As you recall in my speech, I was very, very enthusiastic about the One Belt, One Road, not because China is strong, which it is, not because China's economy is big, which it is, and not because China is also going into various countries, but because the One Belt, One Road pointed out a very important Chinese, you might call it the weakness, and that is throughout history, China look only in terms of outside coming in rather than inside coming out.
Right.
And it's clear that if China wants to do business elsewhere, as they clearly have manifested that they want to do now, they will have to understand other countries. They will have to understand other people's ways and means. They will have to appreciate other people's good food, good manners, good culture. And I think that this is where countries such as Thailand can play such a huge role. You know, if you go to Shanghai now, you actually will see quite a number of Thai restaurants. And I think it is precisely through such kind of penetration into China, you can have a huge impact in changing the Chinese mindset. Just like I think China will have to understand Thailand's mindset in order to truly be beneficial for both sides.
I call it, Professor Feng, I call it soft power. Soft power. Our durian, our culture, our pad thai, or the Chinese also. The Chinese has a lot of soft power. Culture, Chinese language, food, tourism. All this should be the main exchange items between countries, not power, not military equipment, not missiles.
And I think that there's one thing you could do already. Engage in the Thai-Chinese communities.
Yeah.
You know, that's interesting about the Thai-Chinese community as opposed to Malaysia and Indonesia, maybe Indonesia is more the same, but in terms of Malaysia, is that the Malaysian Chinese, for example, maintain its Chinese-ness.
Yeah.
They speak Chinese, and they write Chinese, and they even go to Chinese schools.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the Thai Chinese, on the other hand, as far as I know, all speak fluent Thai.
Yes.
And so they can be the perfect bridge between China and Thailand. Now, as far as I could tell, the Chinese of Thailand, although they're quite prominent and so on, have not done this yet.
No, right.
And I think that the Thai government or the Thai people can proactively engage with them and get their interest in becoming such a bridge. Organize in universities lots and lots of Thai-Chinese cultural discussions, Thai-Chinese history discussions, and so on and so forth. Don't just think in terms of technology and science. Think in terms of, I can assure you, for any human being, on a 24-hour day living, he or she probably spends less than 1 hour thinking about science and technology. The rest is about how you live.
And the rest is about food, about rest, about having fun.
Absolutely.
About having a good drink.
And all the good things in life. Enjoy your durians together with the Chinese.
So you see great potential.
But you still have to beat the Malaysians first in the durian case.
Yeah, we are trying very hard. We are trying very, very hard. And when I met Jack Ma recently for an interview, he told me that I love Thailand. I love Thai durian. My wife loves Thai durian. You're interesting, Professor, because I told Jack Ma that that a lot of e-commerce companies in Thailand and ASEAN are very afraid of you. When Alibaba goes into ASEAN, you're going to eat our lunch. You're going to kill us because you're so big. How do you pacify us? How do you make us think that you are friends, our friends, and not our enemies? And you know what he said? Exactly what you said. He said, China is such a big country. We have so far been exporting our stuff. We export our products. We're trying to sell our products to the world. Now China must start importing. China must start buying things. And our e-commerce, Alibaba, will help the small countries to sell things in China. And he said exactly as you said, that we have a growing middle class, 300 million, 400 million people who can now afford to buy things from abroad. So I hope that Alibaba can play that role of opening up the Chinese market for the countries around the world, especially Thailand. So I think exactly what you are saying and what Jack Ma has been saying are the same thing. My only concern is, does the Chinese government, the Chinese authorities understand this?
Well, I think that's why I think we have to work very hard. The Chinese government, like all governments, don't always listen to people, as you know. I'm sure that even the Thai government sometimes has difficulty listening.
Same thing. All governments are the same. All governments are the same.
But I think that, as we discussed a few days ago, I think if we can gather the minds together in Thailand, in Bangkok, people like Jack Ma, people like the head of the WeChat, and also some of the top university presidents in Thailand as well as in China, and have a major forum where we define the mission of the forum first. Write down what we want to discuss, and not just be up there and brainstorm. We want to discuss A, B, C, D, and then have this propagated through your internet, through your system, like the one we're having now.
Right.
And not do it just once, but do it once every year, non-stop. I think that this is the only way that we can penetrate not only into China, we can penetrate that into Southeast Asia, we can even penetrate into the Western countries.
Sure, great. Give me 5 minutes to translate it into Thai. Professor Feng น่าสนใจผมก็บอกกันว่าจีนเนี่ยใหญ่มากแล้วก็ไอ้ One Belt One Road เนี่ยคนไทยเราหรือหลายประเทศในอาเซียนก็มองว่าเป็นทางเดียวคือจีนส่งของออกจากจีนมาบุกตลาดต่างๆนานาแต่ขณะเดียวกันเนี่ยอาจารย์ Professor Feng ก็บอกว่ามันต้องมองว่าตอนนี้จีนใหญ่ขึ้นมีชนชั้นกลาง 3-400 ล้านคนเนี่ยมีสตางค์ด้วยฉะนั้นไอ้ One Belt One Road มันควรจะเป็น2ทางคือประเทศต่างๆเนี่ยสามารถส่งของมาขายในจีนง่ายขึ้นนักท่องเที่ยวก็ไปเที่ยวจีนมากขึ้นนักท่องเที่ยวจีนก็มาประเทศต่างๆมากขึ้นฉะนั้นมันต้อง2ทางมันต้องเป็นการเปิดกว้างสำหรับเศรษฐกิจทั่วโลกซึ่ง Professor เฟิงก็เห็นด้วยนะครับผมก็คิดว่าน่าที่จะเป็นการเชื่อมโยงนักวิชาการอย่างก็Professor เฟิงและก็คนอื่นๆนะครับที่จะสามารถที่จะจัดการเสวนาเพื่อที่จะให้รัฐบาลจีนรัฐบาลต่างๆได้เข้าใจถึงความสำคัญของการที่ One Belt One Road ต้องสร้างความเท่าเทียมต้องเปิดโอกาสกว้างผมก็เล่าให้ฟังว่าผมไปสัมภาษณ์แจ็คหมาก็พูดอย่างนี้เหมือนกันว่าไอ้การที่เขาเปิด e-commerce ไปทั่วโลกได้เนี่ยไม่ใช่ให้รัฐบาลจีนประเทศจีนขายของออกมาข้างนอกมันต้องเปิดทางให้ประเทศต่างๆทั่วโลกขายของกลับไปในเมืองจีนเพราะว่านี่แหละทางเดียวที่ทำให้การอยู่ร่วมกันและจีนเนี่ยจะได้เข้าใจว่ามันจะต้องปฏิบัติต่อคนอื่นให้เขาเจริญรุ่งเรืองไปด้วยได้ด้วยแล้วอาจารย์เฟิงก็เสนอว่าก็จัดเป็นเสวนามีเวทีของการพูดจาเรื่องนี้สิให้ทุกฝ่ายที่เกี่ยวข้องรวมทั้งนักวิชาการจีนเจ้าหน้าที่จีนเนี่ยมาเจอกันกับนักวิชาการผู้นำทางความคิดของอาเซียนผมก็คิดว่าเนี่ยกรุงเทพเราก็น่าจะเป็นศูนย์กลางของการตั้งวงสนทนาเพื่อส่งข่าวคราวผ่านสื่อต่างๆตอนนี้มีสื่ออย่างเช่น Facebook YouTube ต่างๆนานาก็ไปได้กว้างไกลเนี่ยก็น่าจะเป็นอีกจุดหนึ่งProfessor Feng, I think that's a good idea. We in the private sector, academics, media, thinkers, think tanks, activists should get together and get the government people to sit down and exchange views on this very, very important topic for the future.
I absolutely agree.
Yes.
I absolutely agree. And I think that this is actually very exciting because you know, after all, if there were no One Belt, One Road, however it was pursued, or however, whatever reason they wanted to do it, such discussions would never arise.
No.
And it's because of the One Belt, One Road, all of a sudden, people think in so many dimensions now.
Right.
And in multi ways and international ways.
Yes.
And you know, the One Belt, One Road, if nothing else, is forcing the Chinese to think internationally.
That's true. Very true.
And in fact, even more important, I never liked the word international because it still has the word nation in it. I still like the word globally.
Global, all right.
It's so to really think globally. And after all, you know, the world is facing so many challenges, as you can see. You know, South America, southern part of the United States is now being hit by two gigantic typhoons.
Right. Yeah.
And we were just hit in China, southern part of China, by huge. You know, the weather is changing so rapidly, and we need to solve those problems.
Right.
And the only way that we can solve those problems is that the people in the world start to work in a cohesive manner.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then we may be facing a very disastrous future.
ครับ
Economy works only if the world survives.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that all this is so important, not just for Thailand, not just for China. It really is for humanity.
All right. As we talk, Professor Feng, also live feeds, live commentary is coming on my screen as well. So it's very interesting because people are watching us and listening to us and also write comments. And the comments...
Is there any particular good question that we need to answer right now?
Yeah, Kun Tui said, I'm thinking about doing some business and your discussion gave me an idea and a new channel to do business, especially to the Chinese customers. So you have sparked some ideas about people trying to look into China. Kun Matt Archer said China is acquiring all manufacturing factors, cheap labor, financial reserve, and know-how, while Thailand is enjoying selling durian. So Matt Archer is suggesting that the Chinese are doing the big things, while we, the small countries, are just on the fringe. Do you think that is a correct understanding? That they are playing the big games, while we little guys are playing the small games, and we are not going to be able to compete. I think this is what Matt means.
I think. I think that certainly I have heard such discussions both in Malaysia and in other places.
Yes.
But my feeling is you're only as small as you think you are.
Right.
Or as big as you. And I think, therefore, to take a proactive action as he is an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And as an entrepreneur of the 21st century, he cannot just look at the Thai market.
Yeah.
He needs to look at the world market.
Yes.
And I think the best example, I don't know whether you know this, in the 1980s, when Taiwan started to rise economically, the famous story about Thai businessman is that a lonely Taiwan businessman would carry a small bag and go to every corner of the world to do business. And that was how Taiwan rose from nothing to become one of the important countries in one of the important regions in Southeast Asia. And I think that this is what the Thai businessmen and Thai entrepreneurs need to have the same attitude.
Right.
Is that while you're one person, so is the Chinese entrepreneur is also just a one person.
Right.
And so one person can always talk to the next person at any corner of the world. And especially you can now go to Shanghai, eat in a Thai restaurant, and discuss business with the Chinese.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that the Thai businessman must become more adventurous.
That's right.
More risk.
That's right.
More ready to take risk. And out of their comfort.
Take risk.
Yeah, and also they have to get themselves out of the comfort zone.
That's right.
Yeah, they have
get themselves out of the comfort zone. I know that Bangkok is very very comfortable to live. But if you want to do business, you need to get out of Bangkok every now and then.
I know. My criticism of my Thai fellow countrymen has always been that we are too sabai. Sabai is a word we like very much. Sabai means to be comfortable, to be happy, to be, enjoying life, but when it comes to taking risks or getting out of comfort zone, we say, no. Oh, it's too much trouble. Oh, we're not used to that. Yeah, this sort of thing. Why our friends in Malaysia, Singapore, or the Filipinos, they pack their bag and they leave and they see, and they would take sufficient risk to be successful. So, this is... So the Thai people are quite critical of ourselves. So don't worry if you start criticizing Thai people. Don't feel that you have to praise them or give them too much good words, because sometimes they need some real nudging, real criticism. That's one.
When I was writing my doctoral thesis, my thesis advisor at his office. There is a big plaque on top of his door, which says, unfortunately, the world is real.
The world is real. Unfortunate. Another comment, Moose Pradhan said, in my opinion, China has many provinces and each province has different regulations. So it's possible that all the provinces can come up with the same standards. This is another complaint from a lot of Thai businessmen, I'm sure other businessmen too, that when they get into China, the big picture is okay. They say they're opening up their country. They say they believe in free trade area concept. But once you get into each province, they have their own different regulations.
Well, I think that's the unfortunately or fortunately, that is the definition of a province. As you know very well, in the United States, there are 50 states.
Yeah.
Every state is different, have different regulations.
Yeah.
So this is how big countries organize itself.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, I think that I give you a very interesting example. There are always loopholes that you can find ways to get around.
Yeah.
I give you one example. It's not a perfect example, but it's an example.
Yeah.
Good friend of mine in Taiwan.
Yeah.
Who runs the so-called Taiwan opticals. That means he sells glasses.
Yeah.
You know. And it turns out that he moved into China about 20 years ago and quickly became one of the top companies all over China in every province making glasses.
Wow.
Making eyeglasses.
Yeah.
Now you say, but don't they have different regulations and so on?
Yeah.
He said, he figured out that there was one weakness in all of the provinces.
Yeah.
Province A would compete with Province B and would not allow the glass company of Province A to practice in Province B.
Wow.
However, because he came from Taiwan, he could do in both.
He could do both because
I think I don't know. That there's an old Chinese saying. Yeah. The government may erect a wall of 10 feet. Yeah. The devils will erect a stick to jump over it easily.
Yeah.
So I think that it is not easy for Province A to change regulations to fit Province B. Yeah. Neither it is easy for the central government to impose a universal rule for all provinces. But I think Thailand's entrepreneurs are smart enough to find all the loopholes that's in between.
Let me give you an example. One of my friends, a very well-known businessman, was very happy to get an APEC pass. APEC, APEC, APEC. Yeah. The Chinese government signed an agreement with all the APEC members. If you come to China, you have in this APEC card, then you go through a different channel and you'll get special treatment, this sort of thing. And you don't need a visa. And you don't need to ask for a visa. You just come in with your APEC card. So my friend was very excited. So he went to China with this APEC card for the first time. And he went to Guangzhou, I think. And then the immigration said, what is this? What is this card? He said, yeah, APEC, The Chinese government has an agreement that you don't need a visa if you have an APEC card. No, we know nothing about APEC. Sorry. So it happens, you see. The central government in Beijing may not have briefed all the provinces about APEC, about Chinese commitment with APEC. But of course, it took them time before the whole system became, a standardized system.
But I can tell you that could be also a benefit and not because Guangzhou is very far from Beijing.
Yes.
And some of the ridiculous rules that set up for Beijing may not apply in Guangzou.
Right.
So it really is two ways,
Yeah, there are benefits and there are obstacles, right?
Yes, of course.
Professor Feng, you have been traveling or working in both the United States and Asia. You know both sides of the world very well. what is happening to the new balance of power between China and the United States under Donald Trump? How should people like Thai people, the ASEAN people, understand what is happening? You, I'm sure, in a very good position to tell us that what is the world coming to when Donald Trump is now running the United States with a very, very different kind of policy, and now you see Xi Jinping very much in control of China and doing things that we never expected China to do, say, 10 years ago, like signing up the climate change agreement, agreeing and even advocating free trade concepts, which the United States started, and then now Trump has tried to reject. What is happening to the world? Tell us.
Well, if I know the entire story for that, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. I would be doing something really important in life.
You are doing something important.
But let me give you my 1 cent of wisdom here.
Yeah.
And it may not be very much.
Yeah.
I think that if you look at, again, it has to come from historical understanding.
Yeah.
You know, in the 19th century, no aspiring student in Asia would go to the United States to pursue advanced education because the intellectual world, center of the world in the 19th century was Europe.
Europe, right. Right.
Now, then came 20th century. Then two things happened in the first 50 years.
Yeah.
It's called World War I and World War II.
Right.
World War I, maybe not so much, but for sure, World War II made the United States and mostly the North American, including Canada, a safe haven, a castle that was protected by a very good moat called Pacific Ocean and Atlantic Ocean.
Right.
And for example, why did the Japanese attack Pearl Harbor and not San Francisco? Because they couldn't get there.
Yeah. Right.
Now, that means United States, although it spent a lot of money and suffered a lot of casualties in World War II, gained one thing that almost no money in the world can buy.
Yeah.
It literally brought over the entire European intellectual population to the United States.
Yeah.
There is a very interesting book I think everyone should read.
Yeah.
It's called The Gift of Hitler.
Gift of Hitler.
That's right.
Hitler did some good things.
And what the gift of Hitler was, it gave the United States the best of the best in Europe. What Europe did in 300 years of the Renaissance in developing their intellectual power, within 50 years, Hitler emptied it and handed over to the United States.
Yeah.
So therefore, I mean, this includes people like Einstein, and included one of the greatest violinists in the world.
Yes.
Isaac Stern.
Right.
So, and so the U.S. in the first half of the 20th century suddenly became the envy of the world.
Right. Yes.
And the university became the envy of the world. And everybody, including youngsters in Thailand, want to study in the United States.
Right. That's true.
Then what happened? Well, as the 20th century progresses, the moat, that is the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, became less and less useful. And actually, I tell you, in 1963, my brother went to the U.S. to study.
Yes.
He took a boat. It's called the Presidential Line.
Right, yeah.
And the boat started from Singapore to Hong Kong, to Honolulu, to Japan, and then to Honolulu, and to San Francisco. It took 24 days.
Wow, 24 days.
Okay?
Yeah.
So these youngsters, young men and women, on a lonely ship for 24 days.
Yeah.
What do you think would happen? Well, by the end of the trip, some of them became boyfriends and girlfriends.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of the good things. So maybe we should have more nowadays.
Anyway, the gift by Hitler also. Huh?
So the moat, Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, suddenly by the end of the 20th century became an albatross around the neck.
Right.
And youngsters and people in the United States no longer look at the outside world. And when they, for example, attacked Iraq in 2003, they did it not because they understood the Muslim culture and Muslim ways of means. They just thought that as a powerful nation, as someone that will clearly be good in democracy, we should go in, and also in false pretense.
Yeah, right.
So, if you think about this history, what Trump is doing is a natural eventuality.
Natural eventuality, meaning
natural, very natural. At the same time, think of China in the last 100 years of history.
Yes.
Before 1949, China was just simply in foreign invasion era. And it was totally brutalized by the Japanese.
Yeah.
Then the communists came in. And after that, the communists in the first 30 years had to find itself with all kinds of social movements, including Cultural Revolution.
Right, right.
By the end of the Cultural Revolution, they began to realize this cannot be it. If our country has any chance at all, we need to have an open up era, which Deng Xiaoping wanted.
So Deng Xiaoping was the one who changed China from,
that's right.
From communism.
So by the 21st century,
yes,
I think China realized, and by joining WTO, China realized this is the way that China is going to have a future at all. And so the language and the ideas of Xi Jinping is naturally is a natural one.
Yeah.
So you can see that it is the history of the last 100 years
of both
that drove the United States in its way, and culminating with Trump's election, and Xi Jinping in his way, and culminating Xi Jinping's ideas of the government.
The Chinese dream.
So now the Chinese will have to learn one thing that they have not been totally cognizant of, is that we need to completely understand other people's culture, other people's ways and means, even other people's good food.
Yes.
And I think that One Belt, One Road, in some sense, is exactly for that. And I think that if other countries like Thailand can help China in understanding this fundamental definition of a 21st century powerful nation. That is a nation not just of military and economy, but to respect other people in their cultures, in their ways and means, in their history. I think that we have a far better human history in the 21st century than ever.
But you know, Professor Feng, I think when Xi Jinping launched the One Belt, One Road initiative, he might not have thought about the ramifications, because it wasn't just about linking up railroads or global commerce. As you said, as you suggested, the One Belt, One Road initiative has branched out into social, political, security, historical considerations, which has served
And cultural.
And cultural. You think Xi Jinping knew that he was into this when he launched it? I don't think he was ready for that big bang, so to say.
Well, I cannot answer that question whether he had that in mind or not.
Right.
But clearly, as time went on,
yes,
it became obvious to many, many Chinese that this has to be the case.
Right. So that's why.
And so the Chinese, including probably the Chinese leadership, are also, like everyone else in the world, are climbing a very steep learning curve.
Yeah. Is that why you have paid so much attention to One Belt, One Road in the past few years?
For me, that is the only reason.
Yeah. And
I mean, as you asked, you remember you asked me the question, do I work for the Chinese government? I absolutely don't work for the Chinese government. And I do work for humanity.
Sure, yeah. No, I just want
to... if anything that can help humanity, how can I not be for it?
Sure. No, I appreciate it. I asked that question simply because I wanted to draw you out from your official version. I saw in you a very important agent of change in the intellectual sense, meaning that we could all try to nudge China into thinking more about the smaller countries, and that cooperation, collaboration would only be possible if we feel that we are equal partners. And I think you played that role. I think you played that role very well. You are beginning to play that role very well because you have connections with the Chinese think tank and also ASEAN people, ASEAN intellectuals, ASEAN academics. You went to AIT, and I think AIT was very happy that you gave them that lecture. And I think the connection will start to expand into other Asian countries and also think tanks. And if you can link up the Chinese think tank with the rest of Asia, I'm sure that will be a great service.
Well, I think that's first of all, let me again thank our mutual friend, President Wusak, for inviting me to AIT. And I thought that was really a watershed moment for me, to really open my mind to Thailand.
Yeah.
And I think that my understanding of Thai has grown probably 1,000% in the last 2 weeks. And I think I even asked someone, what is the rationale for the Thai name, for example?
Yeah.
What is the rationale why the Thai name could have such long syllables and so on? And I think that this is where I think that we need to work together very, very hard. We're at a very special time for the world.
That's right.
On the one hand, we are seeing the world facing enormous challenges.
Yeah.
I really worry about whether my grandchildren can see towards the end of the century.
Right.
And I wanted very much that my granddaughter and her children to have a real world to live in.
Sure.
So I think that at the moment, anything we can do together, and especially, I grew up in Singapore.
Yeah.
And so to me, Southeast Asia, I'm part of the Southeast Asian, I'm part of the Southeast Asian. And so to me, Southeast Asia could be so important.
Yeah.
And it is that makes me wanted to work with people like you.
Thank you very much, Professor Feng. And I think this is a good beginning. And if we continue to link up people and try to share our opinions, our analysis, and the role of other major powers with countries in Asia, I think we will be doing providing some good service as people in the media, in academics, and of course even in government. People in government are also interested to listen to what we have to say, because more and more they realize that the world cannot change without the government working with the private sector.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. The private sector will have to take a proactive role.
Yeah. One comment from Sean Kelly now says, great stuff. The conversation is great stuff. So, thank you.
Okay, well, very good.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Feng. I think this is just the beginning of our conversation. We will continue with it both online, on mobile phone, and perhaps I will invite you back again on my Facebook Live program.
Would be great honor. And let's see whether we can set up that forum too.
Yes, I will try to do that. And you too. If you have, if you meet anyone and you come in touch with any contact that will help push this project along this line, then please let me know. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Kun Panit, the last comment. Thank you very much, Professor. See, you get a lot of fans.
My honor.
Yeah.
My honor.
You get a lot of fans now from my Facebook Live conversation. Okay, you can.
Thank you.
You can watch this clip in Facebook Live in my.
I'll do that right away.
I will also send you the link so that you can share it with other people who may not have gotten up early in the morning on a Sunday to listen to us.
You mean 11 a.m. in the morning is early morning in Thailand?
For a lot of people, they are having their Sunday breakfast, Sunday brunch, and maybe talking.
They need to get up earlier than that.
I hope so. Thank you very much, Professor Feng. Yes.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. สวัสดีครับ แล้วก็นี่คือศาสตราจารย์เฟิงท่าสวนครับซึ่งสอนหนังสือทั้งอเมริกาทั้งในเอเชียและตอนนี้ก็เชื่อมโยงกับthink tankของจีนด้วยครับเรื่อง One Belt One Road ซึ่งผมคิดว่าสำคัญและถ้าหากเชื่อมมาถึงไทยเราวงการต่างๆด้วยและผมก็เชิญมาแลกเปลี่ยนความคิดเห็นแล้วก็จัดเวทีจัดสัมมนาให้จีนกับอาเซียนได้คุยกันไทยเรานี่แหละครับที่เขามองเลยว่ามีบทบาทสำคัญเราก็ติดอยู่ในกับดักของความขัดแย้งมา10 กว่าปีหายไปเลยครับ10 กว่าปีเราเกือบจะหายไปจากวงการอาเซียนคนอาจจะมองเราว่าเรายุ่งกับเรื่องในบ้านเราเมื่อไรเราจะฟื้นคืนมาปกติใช้มันสมองเข้าร้ายเป็นประโยชน์เพื่อจะสร้างชาติสร้างบ้านเมืองคนอื่นก็มองเราเป็นประเทศที่มีศักยภาพสูงแต่เรากลับมองว่าจะทะเลาะกันวิวาทกันเมื่อไหร่จึงจะเอาชนะซึ่งกันและกันซึ่งเป็นความคิดที่ผิดอย่างยิ่งครับอย่างนั้นผมเจอนักคิดนักเขียนนักวิเคราะห์เวลาเดินทางนี่ก็จะทำให้ผมได้ข้อมูลความรู้วิธีคิดที่อยากจะมาแบ่งปันกับคนไทยผ่านสุทธิชัยไลฟ์นี่แหละครับขอบคุณทุกท่านที่ติดตามนะครับสวัสดีครับ